been following this gentleman on Instagram, and he's quite inflammatory on Instagram. Has about 1 million followers. He goes by DC Drano, also known as Rogan O'Hanley, right? I got it right. Okay,
yep,
I got it right. All right,
nailed it.
All right. So, but yeah, I've been really intrigued by what he's been posting, especially in regards to, I felt like I was, one of the only voices out there that was getting upset even from the very beginning of the lockdown with our civil liberties being violated. Even though I'm, mostly staying home myself, I'm just going out to run and, and do things because, but at the same time, I've always had the problem with being told what I need to do versus, being asked to and then willingly complying for the good of people. So, that's why I invited Rogan here today, is because, he's got a very strong voice in this, a really strong opinion on this. And I like what he's saying. I like how he's presenting this. So welcome, Rogan.
Thank you for having me on, brother. And, love what you do. Love, the message you're sending. So, happy to help spread, what we both believe in, which is that our rights are being infringed upon in excess of what is required, I think, to effectively combat the virus while also maintaining our economy. People really don't talk about that. The damage that is being done to our economy and our rights probably far outweighs what is actually being done by coronavirus. So it's a very important discussion, and not something that we should sit back and just willingly, obey every single thing. And depending on where you live, it's very excessive. You have curfews, you have mandatory face masks, you have you can't go to someone else's house. That's crazy. I'm
right,
sorry.
Exactly. Yeah.
We are a free society, and we have to. Anyway, so I'm going off on a tangent here, but happy to discuss this stuff.
Yeah. No, I definitely appreciate that side of the argument, because I think so many people. I feel like, I don't know, like if you've read 1984 or what is it, the Fahrenheit 451 and these the Orwellian type of a Brave New World, right? It's like I feel like when I'm watching things on Instagram and listening to people, I hear this mantra being recited of stay home, save lives, and it's almost like, did you stay home and save lives today, sir? Yes, I stayed home and saved lives. Did you stay home and save lives? It's like they're repeating this, and this whole flatten the curve, flatten the curve, flatten the curve. Did you flatten the curve today? And it's scary because it is so reminiscent of that, and I understand the science and everything behind it, but I think there's a greater risk that people. I was surprised so quickly that when this was happening, that people just gave up their rights without even fighting, without even questioning it, just because an expert or a doctor is saying that this is what we need to do. And that sense of that fear, I call it cowardice. That's what really frightens me for the future. Is like, are we going to trade, the freedom that we had, that many people have died, millions of people have died for, at the drop of a hat for some feeling of protection?
Yeah. I mean, America has always been the land of erring on the side of dangerous freedom as opposed to peaceful slavery. And, if you want guaranteed housing, guaranteed food, guaranteed medical care, they have all that in the prisons, right? But that comes with a cost. You lose your liberty. That's the trade-off. And, I think a lot of people were very scared when this first started to hit America. It was a bit of the unknown. We saw these videos on the internet of people just passing out on the street and coughing up blood, and they're fumigating the sidewalks. Yeah. There's a lot of kind of fear, and you had a lot of talking heads saying 2 million, 10 million Americans will die. And so I think people, rightfully so, erred on the side of caution. And especially when President Trump said, all right, we're going to go with lockdowns, we're going to flatten the curve. Okay. I think a lot of people were in agreement. Then, we did that for at least 2 or 3 weeks. And then you started to see a divergence of strategy at the state level. You had some places like Florida, thankfully, where I live, where they resisted the lockdown orders as much as possible. And then they said, okay, we're going to do it for, these next 3 or 4 weeks. Then you got other places like Virginia, and back in March, they said, we're not opening up till June 10th. And coincidentally, June 10th was the day after the Republican primary election. I'm like,
Right.
why June 10th? So random. So I started to say, okay, there's a little bit of politics here. Then we're seeing in Michigan with in both Democrat governors, Virginia and Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, where people just protested by the thousands because she put out a $1,000 fine if you're within 6 feet of people. That's overkill. That's excessive. You're doing more harm than good. We saw in California where you live, beautiful state, horribly run. A guy got arrested for paddleboarding in the ocean, so they could bring him to prison and put him next to a bunch of other people. So they're letting out these violent, sex offenders, literally. Someone in Tampa got released. They committed a murder the same day they were let out. They said, we're going to let you out because of coronavirus. He goes and kills someone, And in Tampa, this is where they arrested the preacher.
Yeah.
That was another big thing in terms of civil liberties. We can do 6 feet at Walmart, but we couldn't do 6 feet at the church. And the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights says Congress shall make no law abridging the free exercise of religion. Okay? That applies to the states as well. It is explicit. You cannot stop us from going to church. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Socially distance at Walmart. We can socially distance at church. Doesn't say anything about Walmart in the First Amendment, but that got protected. And these people said, oh, church is non-essential. So that's when I started to say, okay, you know what? Enough is enough. It's time to push back and defend our civil liberties.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm in agreement with you. I mean, I maybe my stance is even a little bit more extremist. Like I was not in support of the lockdown at all, at least not mandatory. I was in support of suggesting it. I figured that you should not even be able to tell someone to shut down their business, that the economic damages might outweigh because we don't know. And so, I'm pretty libertarian in my viewpoints, I would say. And that's, to me, it's like, well, you know what, even if the death rate was, and this was when it first came out, I said, even the death rate, if it's 20%, we shouldn't tell people that they have to shut down their businesses and that they cannot assemble. At that point, I think people would be pretty afraid to go out of their homes if the death rate is 20% and you wouldn't have a problem. But it's because it's almost, I hate to be like a conspiracy theorist person, but because it's such a blurry line, because it's not quite so deadly and because it's not quite so harmless, it's like right in that point where you can exert the maximum amount of power and the maximum amount of fear. And that's what scares me about this is the precedent of what this is setting. Like, and like I said, again, it's like literally, I think you posted the meme where it was George Washington giving the finger and he's like, because they were fighting smallpox during the time that they were fighting the American Revolution. And that had a 33% fatality rate. Yeah. And more people died of smallpox that were in the military than died of actual wounds from battle, which it makes us seem like such cowards and I don't know. It just, that's a good contrast, I thought. So
yeah, no, and I think you're right. My in that the lockdown should have been suggested because I don't think a lot of these lockdowns even have the force of law in most states. I think they're highly suggested, and it was when they started to enforce these penalties that's when people started to push back.
Yeah,
but I agree. I think that there should be a bit more of a market component, reliance in terms of, can you operate your business at, maybe a reduced capacity, but still maintaining your livelihood? Because we have now 30 million, I think 22 to 30 million people filing for unemployment.
Yeah.
Is that better than what else? People, when they're unemployed, they got families. That leads to divorces, that leads to depression, that leads to suicide, that leads to reduced health, that leads to poverty, starvation. I mean, these are really, really bad. And no one's even talking about that. We have our rights, God-given rights, which we should defend to the death. And then we have the ramifications of shutting down the most powerful economy in the world. Outside of New York City, very sad what's going on there. Outside New York City, there's really not a lot of deaths. They have more than half in one place. People die in car accidents. People die from alcohol overdose. People die from cigarettes. We still allow all these things to be legal, and they kill way more people.
Exactly.
hundreds of thousands more than what's being than people who are dying from the Chinese virus. So this is China's fault. There's nothing wrong with saying that's not racist against Chinese people. The Communist Party that rules China, that has a policy of systemically killing female babies, they want sons, that has thrown over 1 million Muslims into political camps, that has horrible sanitary conditions and food safety. These people that run the country are tyrannical. They're bad. This is their fault. And we're dealing with the consequences of that. And that's a whole other discussion. What do we do to retaliate against China? I'm not necessarily saying we go to war, but was this an act of war? Was it? It's a question that's worth getting down to the bottom of, because our economy has been absolutely obliterated. Thousands of lives have been taken. And in the end, we have to assign some responsibility to a country so that this doesn't happen again. This isn't the first time China has released a pandemic.
Right, exactly. All of Asia, right, wears masks regularly, and there's a lot of good reasons for that.
SARS, I think. There's another. I mean, we have to hold them accountable. And I think, and a lot of people have agreed when I post this, that if there is an outbreak in a country, we have an immediate global ban on all travel to that country. Okay? I don't care if it's America. I don't care if it's Ireland. I don't care if it's Tanzania. If there's an Ebola, if there's a SARS, no planes in or out of there. The whole world contains it. One giant country quarantine, and we wait until they're done. I'll happily give them aid, and we can send our doctors, but we do not win anything by allowing this to spread throughout the entire world. Absolute idiocy.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, like, this same events won't go down the same way again, but I think
Correct.
that, I think it's really, people are being a lot too hopeful at saying that we're just going to restart the economy, because the damage that's been done, even if we opened up everything today, I keep on telling people, it's going to last for at least a few years. There's no way to undo the effects of 20% of the population losing their jobs. Like, it's not like if you open up the economy today, suddenly all those people are going to get hired again. It's not going to happen. And I think, one of the big things, that I had always, when this first started happening, is I was talking about the idea of, like, instead of forcing businesses to shut down and then giving them money later that they have to fight for, why not pay businesses to voluntarily shut down? That would have solved a lot of problems, right? And that would have not violated people's civil liberties, right? These are the kind of solutions that could have been implemented, rather than the craziness of trying to give people money afterwards, and even just, the things that I think, that we're doing now, curious on your opinion on, giving out all this government money, right? This is a very socialist redistribution of wealth. And even when you print money, which we're doing the quantitative easing, the government is buying into the market to prop it up artificially. That's a taxation on the entire population. That is kind of one of those sneaky taxes. And, to me, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We are, it looks like socialism. I do believe that there is a difference when we're in a crisis, as opposed to just normal way of life and you're getting government checks no matter what. This is a crisis. As much as a free market capitalist as I am, I do think there's value in the government stimulating the economy with big spending during very, very sharp kind of recessions and stock market crashes like we've seen. However, I obviously don't like it. I think it normalizes getting money and checks from the government. I would personally love to reduce taxation,
right,
and have a kind of permanent stimulus. Especially in California, it's really bad because all we're really getting is a bit of our money back.
Exactly.
And that it's not, we're not getting more than we had already made. So yes, it's going to have massive effects on our national debt. But in the end, I do think if the government is going to force your business to shut down, the government cannot take your property without just remunerations. That eminent domain. You can't they have seized not only our businesses, but they've seized our freedom. And when people say, "Oh, you got to do your part to flatten the curve, you got to do this and that," okay, we have a therapeutic treatment and social distancing and masks and hygiene, a lot of things you can do to flatten the curve, just even with a functioning society. But the cost, people say, you got to do this, you got to do that. You're forcing them into house arrest. In a lot of places, mandatory curfews, financial penalties if you violate any of these rules, shutting down their business to go from a 99.8% survival rate, maybe you're increasing it 0.5%. So it's right. At a certain point, I think we can have more micro targeting of the restrictions in just common sense. Listen, older people are more susceptible to, kids literally don't die from this. There's like zero right. kids that have died from this. And
not only that, I mean, there's maybe like one that there's like some kid that may have been on drugs or not. And
the one in Connecticut that the governor lied about and Candace Owens right. called them out on.
But they all have
our grandparents say, hey, let's stay away from our grandparents. Let's protect them. Let's protect these older folks. But that doesn't mean that someone like me with a 99% survival rate has to stay in my house as well. I can go out there. Herd immunity is a thing. It's a very established epidemiological concept, epidemiology, the spread of viruses. So eventually enough people are going to get it and not be susceptible to it that it'll kind of die off on its own, like every other virus. So that's something to consider as well. It's part of the discussion.
Yeah. I would make even, two arguments. One being that, we don't have to do things for the greater good. Like as an individual, I mean, obviously it's a good thing to do things for the greater good, but we don't have to do our parts. Like within our rights, we have the right to not do good things, right? I mean, you literally, if you make money, you have the right to spend that money donating it to orphans and charity, or to buy hookers and cocaine. Like, well, maybe you don't have the right to buy cocaine, but the hookers you can in certain places. But you know what I'm saying? It's like,
I see your point.
Like we have this now, like, obligating, like as if our rights are dependent on what we do with them. And that's the other thing that concerns me, is it's like, because there's this whole, let's protect the vulnerable and the old people. And it's like, you got to do your part, and we're going to make you do your part. And that's a problem I have. It ceases to be charity. It ceases to have any virtue when you're forced and compelled to do it by law, as opposed to, it's good to help people. It's good to, I definitely am in agreement with helping people and helping the vulnerable people and protecting old people. But at the same time, also, I have to say that there's a huge difference between forcing someone to stay in their home and or not allowing someone to leave their home, let's say that, and forcing someone to stay in their home as a suggestion, right? Because I, as an individual, I should have the right to go wherever I want, but also someone who is vulnerable or sick or could be harmed by this virus has the right to not go outside and not be exposed. And so why should it be my duty and obligation to prevent them from being exposed when they have chosen to leave their home?
Yeah, I think it's part of the larger discussion that we as a country are having. In a constitutional republic, not a democracy, we do not live in a democracy,
right?
Such as our own. We have these discussions. Where do we as a society want to draw the line on, moral behavior and criminal behavior? Where is the line that we say, at this point, you shall not cross, otherwise, the force of the state will come down upon you? And rational people will have differing points where that is. And right now, we're seeing that discussion take place. Like I said, you have the more extreme cases in Virginia, Minnesota, Michigan, California to an extent, but I think the three former are a bit more severe. And yeah, you had the $1,000 fine for being within 6 feet of people. You have the curfews. You had preachers getting arrested. Where do you draw the line? I, am probably closer to where you are standing, in the debate. We may not agree on everything, but in the end, I do want to stand up for our civil liberties. I like you said, millions of people have died for them. And, it is American culture. Oh, they're doing this in Europe. They're doing it. I don't care.
Right.
We're America. They can look to us and see where we are standing on this. And we are the last bastion of freedom. If it dies here, it dies everywhere. And I do think, and I remind people of this, how will you reflect on how you acted during this difficult time? Because the protection of our civil liberties, there's no honor or courage in defending them in good times. It's defending them in the bad times. And, people like you and me and others are, we're starting to stand up and say, okay, too much.
Right.
Time to go back. And I think there's a very large growing backlash to where things have gone. And I think that's going to continue because people, in the end, politicians, elected leaders, they're supposed to reflect what we feel. All right. A month ago, at least I'd say 85, 90% of people were like, okay, I'm okay with a lot of this stuff. This looks scary. Now, a lot of people are like, all right, this wasn't as bad as they said. They said 250,000. They said 2 million. Now we're looking at 60,000. That's very sad. The typical flu season's 50,000? It's like, all right, is that worth the trade-off of me losing my family, my wife potentially divorcing me because I can't bring in money,
right.
kids being taken away? Like, where, it's time to push back. And that's what we're doing with this. So people are free to disagree, but in the end, you got to listen to your gut instinct. We as Americans, we are, very blessed people, and we're very, educated compared to the rest of the world. And we make these decisions. Our votes matter. What do we want to do going forward? And I think most people are going to say we need to start reopening America.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And I think that part of the problem too is that, like you just said, is that by the time that people realize what's happening and they start to feel that pain, because everyone was kind of in support of it at some point, and now you have the dissenters, but it's because when you've experienced enough pain. And that's why I think that it's like, it brings up the question, like, do we have such a thing as unalienable rights? And if so, then those rights apply no matter what the circumstances is. It doesn't matter if there's bad shit going on. It doesn't matter if there's some virus killing 20% of the population. We still can't take those rights if they're truly unalienable. And I think that's something that I stand pretty firmly on. And regardless of if 90% of the population says we should take away the rights from a few individuals who disagree. The reason why we have the Bill of Rights and the reason why we have a constitution is because we don't just vote and just say, this is what we should do. It should be like, no, these are the things that don't change. It doesn't matter if everyone wants them to change unless we actually make a full amendment to the constitution, which is a difficult process for a reason, because those rights of what has grown and sustained this company or this country. So
absolutely. And to those that say, oh, church is not essential, and the right to protest is not essential, and the right to buy a gun, and all these things that are being restricted across the country that are explicitly protected by the Constitution.
Right.
To those that say those are not essential, I ask you to point in the Constitution where it says, unless there's a scary pandemic. Exactly. It doesn't exist. Okay, the Constitution has survived world wars, pandemics of the past, revolutions, civil wars. It has survived all of them. All right, and it will survive this. But Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson, those who would sacrifice liberty for safety, deserve neither.
Exactly.
You won't get either. The most dangerous thing in the world is a tyrannical government. They have the highest body count, more than any world war, more than any pandemic. Governments killing their own people. The last thing we want is an overpowering government. So you have to, in all situations and in all steps of this process, weigh the cost versus the benefit. And that is what we as Americans are obligated to do. We cannot live in bubble wrap, walking around with oxygen tanks, not going outside unless it's perfect. Where that's not who we are.
Right.
That's not who we are, and that's not how anyone should live. So you don't have to go outside. You don't want to go outside. You don't have to go outside. I'm going outside.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think, it's so many, like you said, a lot of this whole idea, it really is rooted in this utilitarian philosophy that, and most communist governments, most of the atrocities that have happened in the world have been for the greater good, because this utilitarian philosophy does not actually work, because it requires you to sacrifice the innocent in order for the greater good, and that requires the sacrifice of rights. And so but let's talk about, actually, because I think this is one of those topics I wanted to bring up, because I think, having a platform and a medium, what should we do? Like, for instance, I had some lines that were drawn, right? I said from the beginning, I was like, because right now I'm in San Diego and the police have shut down all I'm an ultra runner. I'm training for a 50-mile race right now. And they shut down all the beaches and they shut down all the trails, right? And so I can't run. I literally, there's like literally a path here in Pacific Beach, like a boardwalk, and then a trail that goes around the bay. And I'm literally just running in an alleyway right next to it with a whole bunch of other people who are doing the same thing, because they won't let us, run on the boardwalk. And I'm okay with that. Like, I mean, I don't like it. When I walk by the police, I think, well, you guys are kind of, you probably don't understand what you're doing, but you're kind of, in my mind, a traitor to the people, right? Because you're enforcing this unjust law. But okay, fine. You don't know what you're doing, so I'm going to ignore it and just keep on running. But my limit was always, all right, if they tell me I can't go outside of my house and run, they'll have to shoot me. I'm not, that, and I 100% will hold to that. I will not stop. They'll have to, either five guys will either have to tackle me down or they'll have to shoot me, because I will not allow that to happen. Mm-hmm. So there's a breaking point, mm-hmm. right, for everyone. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that just happened in like Northern California today is a bunch of the counties started requiring masks when you go out. New York is requiring it as well. That's also a line that I will not allow. I will not do it. You can find me whatever, but I will not be forced mm-hmm. to wear a particular garment when I go outside. Mm-hmm. So what should we do? I'm suggesting civil disobedience in these cases, and tell me what your opinion is on it. But my position on it is that if we all say, no, we're not going to do it, we're not going to comply with unjust laws, then they won't be able. In fact, as an example of how extreme it could be, the UK right now, I don't know if you've seen what's going on there, but they're literally inspecting people's shopping bags when they get out of the grocery store and finding them if they've bought non-essential items.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal. Yeah, again, solution being worse than the problem itself. I agree with you 100% with everything you said in terms of, they cannot restrict certain liberties. Absolutely not. And my most popular post I've made throughout this entire pandemic, which admittedly it has been tough. I typically rely on my gut instinct, and I try and put out what I think a lot of people are feeling, and it's been divisive almost no matter what I say.
Yeah.
Usually getting about 40, 50,000 likes, which is a very strong post for me. But I really do try and pay attention to what people are thinking and trying to find the answers in a very rapidly evolving situation. But I posted something a couple days ago, and as of us filming this, it is about to cross 100,000 likes. So it's by far my most popular post. And it was a picture of a bunch of British soldiers with guns pointing at a bunch of colonials. It was a meme. And it said, "Wear your masks." And the colonials, guns, said, "Kiss our ass." And it got by far and away the most likes of any post. And so if you extend that out, so 100 out of almost a million, 10%, you extend that out to the rest of the country, you've got tens of millions of people that probably feel the same way.
Yeah.
And I do believe acts of civil disobedience are one of the best ways to counter what you believe to be a tyrannical thing. Yes, you can suggest them. Okay, you can give us, which 3 weeks ago they said masks didn't do anything. So why are we suddenly having the government enforce by penalty of fine or jail something that 3 weeks ago they said wasn't even an issue. What's it going to be 3 weeks from now?
Right.
You know, slow down. If people want to wear them themselves, go nuts. But there is an assumption of risk that free people have. I'm not wearing a mask.
Right.
I'm not going to sit there and suck my own saliva and sweat while I'm going outside to go buy some tomatoes. Like, I'm not doing that. So I'm 100% civil disobedience. If you want to give me a ticket or something, I'm going to film that. I'm going to post it, and 1 million people are going to see it. And then guess what? Now nobody's wearing masks across the country. There will be backlash.
Exactly.
That is what creates backlash.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's what I'm going to do as well. And I will film it as well. And I think that's what we all need to do. We need to grow some balls, you know, and we need to stand up, and we need to be willing to take a couple of hits for. And people might say, well, John, you know what the fuck, man? Why would you care? Like, just wear a damn mask if you go outside. But it's a slippery slope, right?
Just wear a damn armband.
Right.
Is what they would have said in 1940s Germany. Come on. Like this, it's for the greater good. Yeah, again, same logic. It's all for humanity that oppressive leaders take power and they strangle the rights that you have and your freedom because they want to control everything. Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, who I think has done a decent job, but yesterday he says God didn't bring down these numbers. Fate didn't bring down these numbers. We brought down these numbers. He is putting government above God. And that is almost an exact quote what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm about to post it after this interview. But they believe they are the ultimate superior beings that suddenly, because they got elected for a limited term, they know more than everyone and everything. No. Yeah. You only have power if we agree to it.
Exactly.
Consent of the governed. And if we don't consent, it's not going to work.
Exactly.
So don't consent. You know, we're free to agree and disagree. Doesn't mean I hate you. Doesn't mean you should hate me. I disagree. I think this is too far.
Yeah.
I don't think these people know exactly what they're doing. I don't think this is even going to help. So I'm not going to wear it.
Yeah, and they should look at Sweden. I mean, if what we're doing is really effective, we should be doing a lot better than Sweden, and it looks about the same. So.
Yeah, Sweden didn't do lockdowns.
Yeah.
They didn't do lockdowns, and they've leveled off and they're coming down. I mean, okay. Again, the same principles we apply to going to shop at a grocery store. Generally stand a little bit far apart from each other, wash your hands, education. Okay, we are free people. We can see what probably works. We can do that, lower the risk, lower the spread. You don't need to start putting people in jail and charging them $1,000 for standing too close to someone when 30 million people don't have jobs. That's cruel.
Right,
That's just cruel.
Yeah. Yep. No, I'm 100% agreement. It's not effective. It's not like you said, the paddle boarder, right? For example, or, you know, if someone's running on the beach, like, yeah.
Let it go. You know, it's not like if he was walking around a crowded store and spitting on people, okay, tackle him to the ground and arrest him.
Sure, yeah.
If he is in the ocean by himself, go focus on something else.
Right.
You know, like.
Yeah, just shake your finger at him. Just be like, you know.
Yeah. Hey, you know, you're speeding on the highway. A cop just flicks his lights on you. Slow down. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
I got asked not to walk in a park in Tampa 3 weeks ago. It pissed me off. But not to walk in an open field. There was no one there.
Right.
But the park was shut down. So you're telling me we have established science saying that physical health boosts your immune system and your well-being, and that greenery outdoors also boosts your immune system health and green, and you're not allowing us to access that away from people. It's crazy. It's you're actually cutting off things that will help get rid of the virus.
Exactly. Yeah.
You being healthy and happy makes you a lot stronger to fight against this than if you're stuck in your home and you're upset and you're miserable. Immune system health is a very crucial, you know, again, you gotta think these things through. You can't just hammer everything with, you know, so.
Yeah. And guys, by the way, follow at DC _Drano on Instagram. If you want to see his posts, it's a private account, so you just request access, and then they'll give you access to it, and you can see the memes. I really like, I really like your approach to the fact that you're reaching a lot of people because you're using the memes to educate them on these issues that they should be educated on, and I think that's really effective. So guys, definitely follow and and support him, because I noticed that a lot of your posts actually, this was the main reason why I contacted you, because a lot of people might post memes and stuff just for popularity or whatever, but like you posted some stuff, some of the recent ones, where it really did, like, a lot of people were really angry about what you posted, and a lot of backlash, and these are people that would normally support what you're saying, and that are very conservative, and and I think that that's the real danger, is that we have a lot of people that are not using this. They're
Yes.
just following. They're like, oh well, Trump said it, and I like Trump. I also dislike some of the things that he does, but in general, I'm a supporter of Trump. I'll vote for Trump for sure, but it's like so many people are blindly following stuff, and what I liked was that you said, no, I don't care, it doesn't matter if people disagree, even if they are my supporters, I'm going to say what is the right thing, and that's something I think that more of us need to be able to do, and stand up and do. So
Thank you. Thank you. No, I very much appreciate that. And I think the specific issue you're touching upon, well, partly is getting rid of the lockdowns, but even 2 weeks ago, I was hitting on, we have to be allowed to go to church.
yeah,
That is a constitutional right. And I'm a lawyer by trade. I took 4 or 5 constitutional law classes. I mean, and I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. And so, it's very clear. There's no carve out for a pandemic. People should be allowed to go to church. You don't have to go to church.
right,
But I want to go to church. I know other people want to go to church. In a time of crisis, I don't say, "Oh, dear Governor Cuomo, how can you help me?" I say, "No, dear God, what should I do? Give me the strength to do this." And I get, "Oh, you can watch it online." Yeah, but guess what? I have a right to go to church. I have a God-given right. And as much as I love Trump and will vote for him and have been a staunch supporter, I will die for the Constitution. I will
exactly,
die. So I'm not giving up those rights. And it's on people like you and me, as who I consider to be some of the pillars of society, the people that uphold the rule of law and our morals and our values. Even in tough times, it is our duty to stand up,
yeah,
regardless of the popularity, to stand up for what's right. And now, Attorney General Barr just said we're going to start going after governments that infringe on religious rights. Now the ball's rolling, and we got, people see that, okay, the church was too far. But it wasn't popular back then. But doing the right thing is oftentimes not been popular. But
exactly.
you have no choice.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's very important, especially in today's society where the trials they happen on social media instead of in the court systems, and sometimes it's hard because you have to make a choice. Sometimes it will mean sacrificing your livelihood, or in order to make the right stand, even when you're not criminally prosecuted, you haven't done anything wrong. But the court of popular opinion is the one that often hangs people. But it's important for us to stand strong and to set an example. Otherwise, everyone's just going to cower, and
Yeah,
unfortunately, I think we see a lot of that now.
absolutely. It's, again, I very much appreciate you using your platform to get this message out. That's what patriotism is. That's what being an American is. So I wanted to thank you and your supporters for listening, and for thinking about this stuff, and hopefully taking action on their own to stand up.
Anywhere else you'd like people to follow you, or
They can follow, they can not. I'm just glad they're listening. I'm on Twitter as well, DC Drano, Facebook. So most active on Instagram.
Yeah.
Fairly active on Twitter too. So.
All right, awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and and giving your opinion on all this. And I guess maybe, like, to wrap it up, I guess what should people be doing right now? Let's say you're watching this, you're in support of this, you're not in support of having your civil liberties taken away. How should people be responding to this, and what's the call to action? Like, what should we be doing? How should we be organizing in responding.
I think there's 3 very easy things they can do. The first is think for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Read both sides, listen to the arguments, come up with your own decision. Don't just listen to what the news says. Don't just listen to what a politician says, because they have self-interest. The second thing is you should do a quick read through of the Bill of Rights as a fresh reminder of what is guaranteed, that no one can take away from you. And the third is to raise your voice in support of what you believe. Whether you agree with us, whether you disagree, get your voice out there. Social media is very effective. Calling your local elected officials, calling your Congress people, and then, if all else fails, acts of civil disobedience. If you believe a law is unconstitutional, that's your choice to decide whether or not you are going to obey it. And that's why we have legal systems. And, do something I think that you'll be proud of down the road, that, leave your mark on society that your family would be proud of. So I will always fight for freedom and the Constitution. And if it ends me or puts me in jail, one day I will be vindicated. Hopefully I don't go to jail. But, I'm never going to stop fighting for the truth and for freedom. So I hope everyone else does the same.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree 100%. And, even the strongest empire in the world was overthrown by civil disobedience when Gandhi, practiced it and got enough people to do it in India. And so, if you can overthrow the strongest empire in the world, then, it is effective. People might think, hey, it doesn't matter. So what if I get arrested or I get ticketed? Hey, it does matter, because if we all do it, it will work. So
acts of injustice spark backlashes and revolutions. If people see someone good, someone like you, who just wants to go for a run, getting tackled and arrested, and it's on film, the whole world will change. Exactly. So be the change you wish to see.
That's it. All right. Thanks again, man.
All right. Thank you, John. It's great being on. Thank you.